What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another podcast. My name is Mike Perrine. This is the Everyday Detox podcast. You can find us on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play, on TuneIn, and very soon on Spotify. If you like watching these podcasts, you can watch them on YouTube at everydaydetox.org. Guys, I'm super stoked on my guest for this podcast. Dr. David Mehler sits with me. I've been holding back questions for 2 years that I've had about the work that he does and that I've benefited from, because I wanted our conversation to be fresh. I wanted it to be authentic. I've held the questions back in anticipation of this podcast happening. And he does something very powerful called NSA, Network Spinal Analysis. If you've ever watched my Snapchat, I used to Snapchat throughout my whole process of opening Vitality. And I was going to David's office sometimes 3 times a week. And I got exceptional value from doing the work. David's going to explain what that is. And we're also going to talk about an immersion program, an intensive that he runs for men, as a coach for men. So David brings tremendous value to the world. He brings tremendous value to this podcast, and I think you guys are going to agree. So let's jump right in. Let's start the podcast exactly with this. My hair started to fall out when I went through a tremendous period of stress. Like, it just started just coming out. I had 2 things happen. I had one side that started to bald a little bit prematurely. So I had a full head of hair, and then this hair fell out because I used to work as a chef, and I used to use a bandana because you have to have a head covering in the kitchen. And my hair would always part over here. So, and I have like very thin hair. So my hair would always part here, and it started to like just get, the part got bigger and bigger, and I was like, oh shit, what did I do? So 2006, and this is where we'll start this. 2006, I went through a divorce. I had Lyme disease. I had started my first like real big business. I had some smaller like underground colonic businesses before, whatever that means. But and then it was the first time I did an actual like professional studio. I went to Enlightened Warrior Training Camp. It's one of T. Harv Ekker's things. I see when I used to come to your office, I used to see a lot of people that I knew from there. Wow. So it's a lot of change and stuff in my life, and I was stressing out. There was one point I was sleeping 45 minutes a night when we were building out my previous studio. So this is 2006. So what is that? How many years ago? What is that? 14 years ago, something like that?
A jillion.
Yeah. So hair started to fall out, and something interesting started to happen. I started getting headaches and a lot of neck pain. Now, I always attributed it to the bad decisions I had made over the years. Like, so I'd made bad decisions carrying weight. I remember one time I came home with groceries, and I said, this is so heavy. Let me get on the scale. And it was 70 pounds, but not 70 pounds balanced. It was like 70 pounds like in a backpack and like all these bags, one on my shoulder. Yes, I've done like a lot of ridiculous things like that. But I was extremely stressed. My neck and my back started to hurt, and I started to get really bad migraine-like headaches from it. And this pattern continued over the years. And it started to get worse and worse. And when I was building out this studio, again, another big time of stress, a lot of financial instability, a lot of uncertainty, and I was having trouble dealing with it. And I would wake up sometimes in the morning, it would feel like I'd run a marathon. My IT bands would be tight, and I would have tremendous pain and like back soreness. And I hadn't lifted anything. It's not like when we were building it physically. Like, this was just the negotiating process and juggling money and trying to get things to happen. So I started to experience these intense headaches again. And then I was like, I can't start this business and because these would put me out for a whole day. It was this interesting headache and interesting back pain that would like drain my whole system. It was so painful that I could get on with something and put on a smile and do it, but it was just misery. Like, I had to like lay out. Just if I could take the day, I would have to take the day. I'm like, how am I going to start this business with this to-do list through here and all these people depending on me and get this done? So we had connected at Soul Camp, which is an adult getaway camp where people do like fun physical stuff, and it's really, there's a focus on creativity and spirituality and self-love at Soul Camp. It's an amazing place. We were both instructors there. Someone had tried to get us connected years before. Do you remember when Suki Zoe did? She's an amazing colonic therapist in the UK. And she had, I don't know, for some reason she thought you guys would love each other, and she sent us a thing on Facebook, and we were both like, hi, you know. We never really like made it happen. True New Yorkers, like, we never really made it happen.
It's a dude thing. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
How you doing? Yeah, we should get together sometimes.
Yeah. I stopped by your place once for a oneness blessing, and we just said a quick hello. But anyway, we had connected at Soul Camp more deeply. And then I was experiencing these headaches and the neck and the back pain. I was seeing an amazing chiropractor, and he does do some energy work. He actually so cool. I'm so lucky that I got connected with him. Uh, his name is Dr. Wong. He only works on professional athletes and then clients that are referrals from other clients. And he comes to your house for $40. And it's $65,000 a visit with him and his team at Stony Brook University where he works, because they send, athletes that are worth tens of millions of dollars. So, and it's the kind of thing where they put like all the little electrodes on you and you run and they see which muscles are like misfiring and all that. So he was brilliant, and he's also a Chinese medical doctor. And he was really good at telling me what was going wrong and what needed to strengthen and all this. And then he kind of put me back. And sometimes within 20, 30 minutes of him leaving, because of the way I was thinking and the way I was stressing, it would go right back. So he was doing a great job. I dropped the ball a little bit in that I did not do a lot of the exercises and things he told me to do, partially because I was so busy. Now, I was like, look, enough's enough. I need to heal. So I said, I'm going to call David. And I didn't quite get what you did. I knew about it. I had friends that have done it. People told me for years. But I was just like, this is it. And I'm going to just surrender myself over to this. I picked up the phone, called your office. I said, I would like an appointment. Okay, great. Hung up the phone. The pain started to go away, by 60%.
That's the magic we do. I mean, as soon as you do the phone call, the healing already begins.
Yeah, it was amazing. And you told me, you said that was your present self connecting to your future self. And I was like, right on. Okay. So I came in for a consultation with you. We did a consultation. I said, I'll do whatever you want to do. I signed up for a series. And then I had my first session. I lay down on a table. You did a few things. You touched my neck in a few different places. I don't know what you did. And I don't know how many sessions it took, but it wasn't many. It was anywhere from like 1 to 3 where I really started to feel it. I started to walk differently, think differently, breathe differently, and a lot of the pain just started to disappear and go away. And then what I've always wanted to ask you on this podcast is, what the fuck are you doing? Because you don't make adjustments like regular chiropractors. So what's happening on that table?
Great question. I'm going to do my absolute best to finally let you know. But let me go back first and tell you how I actually even got into all of this, which, quick story is, right out of college, started selling photocopy machines.
Exciting. Okay.
Very exciting. So exciting that I would wake up every day with ulcers. So I go to the doctor, like most people do when they have a symptom. And the doctor tells me, well, it must be hereditary. It runs in the family. Your mother has it. Take these pills, and eventually maybe you'll need surgery. So I looked at the doctor. I was 21 at the time, and I said, I have a better idea. I said, keep your pills. And the next day I quit my job. My father freaked out, but after he calmed down, this is what he told me, and it changed my life. He said, you can live under your mother's roof for the next 6 months. Meaning they weren't living together at the time. They were already divorced. He's like, you can live under her roof for the next 6 months. And during those 6 months, I want you to go find, what do you love? What are you passionate about? What lights you up? I don't want you to go from job to job. So the day after I quit, naturally, my ulcers are gone, because I made the connection that my body is intelligent. My body has wisdom. My body talks to me. If I learn how to interpret what my body is trying to tell me, then I can utilize that wisdom and make good decisions in my life. So that's when I got the first big aha. So off I went to chiropractic school, because I knew I wanted to be in service. I knew I wanted to help people. I knew that I was put on earth to be of service, and that the way that I'm going to feel good about who I am as a man is if I'm in contribution and in service to other people. And it was about 6 months before I graduated from chiropractic school. And I was really into the philosophy. I was really into the science, the art, which chiropractic, by the way, was developed in 1895 with the intention that the body can heal itself as long as you remove the interference that's stopping your innate wisdom. And the first chiropractic patient ever was 1895. It was a janitor in a school. And due to a misalignment in his neck, he had no hearing. And the town healer at the time did a gentle thrust into his neck, and boom, the guy's hearing came back. And that's how chiropractic was birthed.
Is that right? I had no idea.
Yeah. And then people from all over the different towns would come to see him. He would feel their spine. He would feel where it was out of alignment. And he started seeing, wow, if the spine's out of alignment here, it correlates to this organ or correlates to this health problem. And next thing you know, as he was learning how to just realign the spine, the person's life was changing. So 6 months before I graduated, I sustained a horrible injury to my neck diving off of a cliff in Jamaica. Rick's Cafe. Don't know if you know about it.
I might have seen. Is that still a thing that people
It's
do?
a famous thing.
I've seen YouTube footage of people diving off of this thing.
Yeah, you
Wow.
probably
Okay.
saw my footage because I had no professional diving experience, but it just looked like a great idea at the time. But it also changed the trajectory of my life because when I got back to school, I'm living in neck pain, and here I am, a chiropractic student, 6 months from graduating, and I have chronic neck pain, I have chronic low back pain. I'm like, this is crazy.
Well, how perfect, huh?
How perfect.
Yeah.
And it was embarrassing, right? So how am I going to help people? I thought at the time I was going to work for the New York Jets. How am I going to get people out of pain and help them when I can't even help myself? So as a last resort, I went to this guy's office. His name's Alan Katz, and he was practicing this work developed by Dr. Donald Epstein, who's my mentor. And he does this thing called network care, where you just do this gentle touch. And next thing you know, miracles happen. So my first 4 visits, similar to your first or second, I felt nothing. Part of me was like, this is bull. What the hell is this doing? But on my first visit, just from him touching me the weight of a feather on my pelvis, next thing you know, I can move my neck. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, part of me was like, this is amazing. This is badass. And a part of me is pissed off because it invalidated everything I had learned for 3.5 years in chiropractic school. Like, I thought you have to manipulate this, move that. I'm like, he touched me the weight of a feather on my pelvis at an area that had nothing to do with where my symptom was. And boom, I could move my neck. 4 visits later, this is what got me to do the work that I've been doing now for over 23 years. On that 5th visit, he starts touching me, again, the weight of a feather, and boom, my body starts moving and undulating like a dolphin. And I start crying and I start laughing and I have these primal sounds coming out of me. Now, why is this a big deal? Because I hadn't cried since the day my dad moved out of my house at age 13. So this was 13 years later. The floodgates just spontaneously opened. I'm hysterically crying. I'm laughing. Primal sounds are coming out of me like a lion. And it's like my body was shedding years and years and years of tension, stress, and all the traumas and shit that got stuffed down. And it was all happening spontaneously. My thinking mind couldn't stop it. And I didn't want it to stop because it just felt so natural, felt so good. When all of that sound stopped, what happened was I was left with an embodied experience of what I call grace. It's almost like when you're in the church and everyone's like, praising the Lord. Like, I had what many people would term or deem a spiritual experience where I was consumed by pure grace. Now, this is a kid that grew up in the Bronx, Yankee fan, Bronx guy, talking like a tough guy. And all of a sudden I'm like in this zenned out, blissful place of like pure love, pure grace. And the only words that kept pouring out of my mouth were, thank you. Like, I embodied the experience of gratitude. Like, I've said thank you. My dad bought me a brand new Honda Prelude in 1987. Hey, thanks, Dad. But I had no idea what thank you meant. Mm-hmm. But in that moment, I felt what gratitude was. And I had immense gratitude. And I looked at the guy, Alan, and I said, I don't know what the hell just happened. I can tell you this. I'm supposed to do this work. That was 1994, and I never friggin' looked back.
So when you were getting worked on by him, did he work like you do? You work on what, 6 people at a time or 8 people at a time?
I generally work with 6 at the time.
6.
I think Alan was probably doing 8.
Oh, he was. So you had the momentum of the room.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that was really great. And I've experienced this in other processes I've done. Is when people are worked on together, it almost and when they're having experiences and being authentic with them and expressing them fully, it gives the rest of the room permission to do the same thing. It's so powerful.
Totally. I mean, actually, where it came from, because Donnie, the developer of it, he studied a lot of different people's works, and Hans Seeley, one of the scientists who developed the whole principle of entrainment. So you take an inanimate object like a grandfather clock, you put 10 of them in a room together, they're tick-tocking at a separate pace. Within 24 hours, every clock will entrain to the one with the slowest tick-tock.
Right.
Same thing with menstrual cycle. Whoever has
Right.
the stronger rhythm, the more healthy rhythm, the other woman's menstrual cycle will entrain to that person. So with this work, network care, they developed it where the tables are a certain distance apart, where you have a certain amount of people in a room, and whoever has the healthiest spine, whoever has the healthiest nervous system, the others will momentarily entrain to that person's vibration so you could expedite one's healing process.
Is that why it's done that way? See, I didn't know, and I've had friends that have had it done, and it's like more of a private setting. I think the doctors that are working with them probably they're in more isolated areas and they don't have as much traffic through their place. But yeah, so for the listeners to understand what happens, there's 6 tables in David's office. Well, were 6 tables in your office. David's currently just closed his practice to work on something else that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But there'd be 6 tables. There'd be 3 or 4 people on the couch. There'd be children running around. There'd be music, anything from like Hare Krishna music to who knows what playing. Super chill, beautiful environment. And people would be getting worked on. Some people would just be completely collapsed and relaxed into what was happening. Other people would be like going into convulsions. And I remember one time I was there and there was somebody, they were basically doing like a need a head type of stretch, but she was doing it at like lightning speed. I thought, oh my God, I thought our head's going to pop off, but like a lot of stuff occurs for people when they're there, and it's exciting and it's fun and it's noisy because sometimes what you're experiencing has sound. But so what's happening?
Yeah, great question. So think of it like this. As kids, we're exposed to so much stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's amazing and fun and vibrant and alive, and some of it's traumatic.
Yeah.
Some of it's scary, right? And even in like when you're in utero, like maybe your mom was under a lot of stress. For me, it happened when I was like 3, 4, 5, where, my dad at the time wasn't such a great guy and he didn't know how to control his rage. You can fill in the blanks and understand what I witnessed as a child. And then it was at age 5 where I'm playing with my dog, Brandy, the big standard apricot poodle that was known around the whole town. My dad's best friend used to play poker with my dad. Literally, the dog played poker. And I'm petting him. He rolls over. I go to pet his belly and he hits his head on a piece of furniture and boom, he dies in front of me. But the next thing I remember is in the backseat of our orange Datsun, we're on the way to the veterinarian hospital. My parents are hysterically crying in the front seat. Brandy's wrapped in a towel. Next thing you know, some guy comes out in a big white, long coat. I guess he was the veterinarian doctor at the time. And he's trying to explain to me that the dog's gone. But all I'm hearing as a little kid is, I killed my dog. So in that moment, when we have traumas like that, when we have hurts like that, when we have things that don't allow us to feel safety in real time, our body goes into what other people know is called fight or flight, which is a stress response, which is designed to just protect you when there's emergencies. And so in those moments, you're not thinking, why did this happen? What's the meaning of this? How can I grow from this experience? How can I ultimately tap into the wound of this and turn it into a gift? That part of your brain's gone. The part of your brain that's turned on is the part that says, just get me through this freaking experience.
And has a very physical effect.
Very physical.
Cortisol, adrenaline.
Yeah,
and it might be tensing or something. Yeah.
And it goes deeper because what happens is in that moment, your physiology locks into a distorted posture. And your spinal cord, which sits inside your spine, literally can be contracted and contorted into 5 different distortional patterns. And depending upon which pattern you're distorted in, it will start to control the way you think and the way you behave. So for example, you could easily right now put your posture in a posture of somebody who's really down on themselves, really hard on themselves, doesn't believe in themselves. Or you could put your head all the way forward of a posture of somebody who's really angry. So your spinal posture really is how you had to posture in life to feel safe in relationship to all the life experiences that you've accumulated. And if your nervous system hasn't aligned itself, it hasn't attuned itself, if it's not vibrating at the highest frequency possible with complete congruence and coherence, then you're still reacting to all the past stresses that you've had in your life. So I could look at somebody's spine, I could look at somebody's posture, and I've learned this from my mentor, and I know all about the person's life because posture reveals exactly what's going on in their life. How you posture is how you see the world. So what you were witnessing in yourself and what you were seeing other people going through on the table is the spinal cord was literally unwinding the different distortions of how it contorted and contracted to keep you safe through these different stresses and traumas. And as it's letting go, the body goes through movement because it's like a rope that got knotted that's unwinding itself. And all the sound that got stuffed down is starting to come out spontaneously. I mean, imagine what cancer would sound like. I mean, today in our world, we think it's more normal for somebody to say, I got diagnosed with cancer, I'll do chemo, I'll do radiation. I say cancer is nothing more than sound that is not expressed. It's like all the times in your life you had to stuff it down, you had to push it down. And instead of you being fully expressed in this world and being able to communicate and make sounds and all that energy is still bound inside of you. And at some point, it has to implode. If you don't have a healthy outlet, a healthy means of allowing this sound to come out in a spontaneous manner, which is what happens with network care, then it will implode. This is where all disease and all health problems come from, because if your body can't express it, then it's repressed. If it's repressed, it's going to implode internally inside of you. So when you were in my office, what you were hearing was the explosion, which is really the release of all the bound energy finally being liberated out. And as an outcome of that, as a result of that, a person's posture changes because it's no longer in defense. And as the posture changes, you all of a sudden start thinking differently. So for example, somebody who feels pressured around time or money, and I can't trust in the timing of life, I don't have enough days in the week, I don't have enough money in the bank, I don't have enough minutes in the day, all of a sudden that person starts saying things like, man, my life is like one giant synchronicity. Like, I can't believe how it's all unfolding with divine timing. This is crazy. Like, I'm like so playful. I'm like laughing every freaking day because I see how God is orchestrating my life and just lining things up with divine perfection. And that will happen not because they learn that from me. That will happen because as their spine lets go of this distortion, they'll automatically think differently. They'll automatically behave differently.
Yeah, you're not doing some type of coaching with people in there. So when I started thinking differently, it was because of just things that were shifting within my body. It's interesting that you mentioned that there's a great video on YouTube of Tony Robbins. You've probably seen it. Can I mention that you work on Tony Robbins?
I mean, you could mention it. I mean, I'm not gonna say anything.
I just did. So you work on Tony Robbins, and there's a great video of Tony Robbins with a man that was stuttering for like 20 years or something since he was a child. And Tony just brought it right back to whatever traumatic thing happened. He was watching Rocky and Bullwinkle, and he picked up the stuttering to create a problem because his father was beating his mother, and it stuck with him for 20 years, and Tony fixed it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's spontaneous healing.
Now, understanding what the results are, what are you doing? Because you did some interesting stuff to me. You've asked me to help you work on people when I'm there. And you say, come over here. I need you to put some pressure on this person here. Like, hold this. I don't even know what I'm holding, but you like hold this here, and I'm holding my hand above their body, and I'm holding on to something. And you've shown me some very cool things where you're like, watch this. And there's somebody laying face down on a massage table. They know there's people walking around, but they don't know that I'm standing there. You didn't make an announcement really of it. You just waved me over. And then you will literally take your hand above their body and pull your hand up, and the leg whose hand you're over will raise up off the table and then go back down. And I'm like, how did they know you're doing that? They don't even know I'm watching. So now what is that process?
Yeah, that one's not going to be so easy to explain.
I know, but this is what I'm so curious about. And I do this in the treatment room. I found out early on when I've been doing colon hydrotherapy for 16 years, and a lot of our job is very physical. A lot of emotional things that go in the treatment room because we process a lot of emotion through our intestines, especially our large intestine. So it is more than just physical work. But I learned with very stubborn treatments where people's bodies were more delicate. Like there's some people I can work on like a car. Their trigger points work. I get in there and just boom, streams of waste come out and they're like, woo, amazing. And they're out the door and it's great. Other people, it's more delicate. There's stuff hanging on. And we're trying to work out how to get it to move. The more physical I am with them, the less likely it is to happen. So I learned that I could actually move waste out of people's bodies with my hand without even touching them, or just touching them gently. And it was fascinating. I was like, now I never studied Reiki. I never studied anything energetic. I studied colon hydrotherapy, and we figured that out on our own as therapists. I just knew that it was possible and I could do it and I could tap into it, almost like that therapeutic touch where you can kind of like get the field of someone's body. So what's your best explanation to what goes on in that room? Because it looks magical to people.
Yeah. My mentor, who I keep mentioning, Donald Epstein, he says, the path to extraordinary is never through the ordinary. And that if you want it to be ordinary and look normal, you're not going to have the outcomes that you want. So we're aware of it as practitioners that it looks a little weird, but really today what weird means is like I don't really understand it. Mm-hmm. And so when the conscious mind can't really wrap its fingers around it, we deem it as weird. For me, it's more weird to have to go in and out of doctors' offices and be treated for symptoms because let's be real, symptoms are nothing more than angelic messengers that are trying to wake us up to say, hey, something in your life has to change. right? You get symptoms, you go to a doctor, you say, hey, doc, can you get rid of this symptom? I want to go back to my life as usual. But what I learned from my mentor is a symptom is your wake up call to say something in you has to change. See, the problem is not the symptom, the problem is you're as usual. So what's happening in my office is you have practitioners such as myself who have been studying for years upon years upon years under the tutelage of Donald Epstein. And there's a science to what we're doing. As hokey pokey and as weird as it can look, I mean, there's an exact science to what we're doing. Now, with the analysis that we learn and with the science behind it, none of that matters if you don't have what you're referring to, which is called presence. You have to be present to the person you're working with. You have to have empathy. You have to have compassion. And you have to recognize how to have rapport with that person. So with some people, the rapport is at a certain distance. With other people, the distance is closer. With other people, the distance is further away. As long as you create that rapport, as long as you have fierce presence, you can have access to being in communication with that person and with their body. So for some people, it is at a distance. So when you're seeing my hand hover above the person and all of a sudden they're responding, that's just where the rapport is with that person. The conscious mind likes to think, oh, but you need to touch here, you need to go deeper, you need to press harder. The reality is that's not real. What's real is where's the rapport with this person and how can I gain access to doing the least to create the greatest outcome. So Donnie developed all of this with the intention of how could I do the least? How could I intervene the least? It's almost like that boulder that's on the top of a hill and it just needs the touch in the right place and then the rest takes over. The momentum takes over, the boulder will roll itself. The body will heal itself. The body knows what to do. You just have to know where to intervene. And if you could intervene with the least amount of force, but the greatest amount of presence, miracles will happen.
I tell people all the time, I have like my top 5 modalities and things. I was like, that was one of the best and most valuable things I ever put time and money into. Like, and it was so valuable to me. You know, I didn't have a lot of time then. I didn't have a lot of money then. I figured it out and I got to you 2 to 3 times a week, sometimes twice in the same day. And it was tremendous. Now, full confession, and I will admit that since I had stopped coming to your office, I did fall back into old ways of thinking, and my neck is jacked. My neck and my back are jacked. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, the work is a lifestyle, right? So we're not out to make people dependent upon it. The reality is, it's like, look, I have an iPhone 10. Why? It does what all the previous generations could do and then some. And it can keep up with the demands that I'm putting on it. So technology keeps advancing and people understand I want to have the latest and greatest technology that can do the most and can do it the fastest. We have a nervous system that is still running from the Stone Age. We still think there are dinosaurs out there chasing us. This work literally is an upgrade to your nervous system, and there's no end to how far you can take your nervous system's evolution. So what we're after is a coherent nervous system that can better adapt to life. So the first phase of the work really will help somebody clear out a lot of the past stuff. Then the next phase of it kind of moves more into, now how do we make this person more adaptable to what hasn't even happened yet? So when you stopped, it's kind of like you stopped almost like, let's say on the iPhone 6 or 7. Okay, no problem. But life kept happening, stress kept
my
happening,
stress didn't change.
and you didn't have the software to fully handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So you go into an office again now of somebody who does this work, or maybe I work on you again, and boom, you're upgraded with the next level of software, and boom, you can handle life again and become more adaptable.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny. I tell people all the time when we talk about diet, nutrition, what's going on in their gut. I'm like, this is your body communicating to you. And I tell people all the time, like, your body's just communicating that something you just did has this effect and it's letting you know and it's telling you that you shouldn't do that again for whatever reason, right? It's variable reasons. And that's what my body is doing with me when I wake up in the morning. Somewhere in my rest period, it's telling me that this way of thinking is not working for you and something needs to change. That's why I haven't taken a medication, not even a dental drug, pharmaceutical or recreational substance has not entered my body for 23 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, I just go all into my illnesses,
That's awesome.
not stupidly. If I'm like on the brink of death, I'm going to go get medical help. But I don't run to the emergency room. I don't run to the pharmacy. I don't do it. I enter into it, let my body work it out, and so far it served me well. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you live a really clean lifestyle, and actually, coming full circle back to how we even connected at Soul Camp was, I'm looking around at everyone's plate and what's on their plate, and you have this like giant plate, like, I mean, like one of those Jiffy popcorn things where the whole thing starts to fluff up, and I'm looking at your plate, and it's like all lettuce and carrots and all these vegetables. And I'm like, this guy's healthy. And then when I sat down next to you, I looked into your eyes and I said, these are the whitest eyes I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen somebody with so much vitality. And then my wife said, that guy has the cleanest skin I've ever seen in my life. And next thing you know, you're talking to us about, how you work with the colon and how you have a clean colon and you have a clean gut. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's like so healthy. I got to learn from him.
Good conversation for the dinner table. I start talking about colons. See, that's embarrassing, Nick. Someone needs to put me in check.
But it's infectious because the point is that when somebody's really healthy and somebody's seeking out health, your vibration is like a magnet. You're going to call people to you that want the same level of wellness. So my wife and I were seeking a deeper level of wellness around the food choices that we're having. And boom, you attract us, we attract you, and then we have the conversation.
Yeah. Before I want to move on to something, but I want you to tell me about something you were telling me. I think you were talking to me about your teacher, Donnie. You told me that he was able to look at x-rays of different people and tell you who the serial killer was or who had done, extreme things in their lives.
Well, he studied x-rays religiously, him and another colleague early on in his career. And, more importantly, what you're really referring to is he was able to determine that through certain angles that the vertebrae were positioned at, you could predict how that person's thinking and how they're behaving in their life. And there was one scenario, one story that he shared with us early on where it was almost like an old Quincy episode for those of you that are older that remember Quincy, or like one of those old detective shows where they literally like looked at this guy's x-ray and said, oh my God, I think this guy's actually planning on wanting to commit a murder, but he hasn't done it yet. And they ended up confronting the guy who breaks down crying hysterical and saying, it's true, my wife had been cheating on me and I already bought the weapon, but I hadn't done it. Please forgive me. And they were able to tell this just from a freaking x-ray.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
You got me with that story too. And
you had me at hello.
I kind of got it when you were telling me that. I think it was like the first time that we connected about the work. So have you seen things where you see like a couple come in and you're like, oh my God, this guy's cheating on his wife? Or like, do you see like, things like that? Or what stays in the entrainment room? What happens
it's like
in
a
the entrainment
Vegas
room
thing.
stays in, yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a reverence in there. And, the whole idea is to create a greater level of safety in somebody's body so that they can start to make the changes. So if somebody's out there in their life, full of rage and hurting people, it won't be long in the office before they really get with their rage in a really healthy way. And how that will manifest outside the office is they no longer project it onto people. They just embrace the energy, they experience it for what it is, they make the sounds, and they don't have to externally project it where they're harming others. So there's a reverence, there's a level of empathy and compassion. There's not a judgment in there.
How many years were you doing this for?
23.
23.
23 years.
Oh, that's right. You said 94.
23.
So, yeah, that's when I had my spiritual awakening. It was in 1994. Yeah. So I've been eating clean and got into this 23 years ago. Oh, so we have that in common. That's good stuff. So 23 years, and you just closed your New York practice. Are you going to do this ever again? I'm sure you'll be going to those big events that are. What are they called?
Gates.
Yeah, the Gateway or something. Or the Gate.
Yeah, the Gate. Yeah.
The Gate.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to one of those with my wife in February.
Yeah, that's in Colorado, right?
Yeah, there's like that's where you have like 300, 400, 500 people from offices all around the world, and they come and get work done by Donnie and his staff, and you get served for 2.5 days, and it's just the most beautiful. Like, it's like the biggest party on the planet where the vibration is so intense. It's like standing in between two stereo speakers. You're like, I'm not dancing, I'm not dancing. Next thing you know, the speakers make you want to dance. So you can come there stuck and rigid, and next thing you know, you leave a totally different person because the vibration's going to get you.
Are those just for practitioners, or is that for anybody?
Anybody. Anybody. Yeah.
That's good stuff. I'll put some info in the description on that. But now I know you'll go to those events because I've heard you talk about them. Are you going to practice anymore?
So George Foreman, you remember him, the boxer?
Yep.
You remember how many comebacks he made?
Yeah.
So it's anything's possible.
It's
but
possible, yeah.
I will never stop serving the work. I'm just going to be serving it in a different capacity. I'll be serving it in a different way.
Right.
So just my journey with Manhattan is over with regards to my office.
Yeah. Big loss to Manhattan, but very happy for you to be moving into something new. Let's transition with that. You closed your Manhattan office, what was it, today?
Today.
Oh, today. Oh, and then you came right here. I love that. Thank you. So close the Manhattan office. You're leading these events, Man on Fire. Men's work It's super interesting to talk about today in light of everything that's going on. I mean, men are being held really accountable to the way they're acting.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue because I don't want to say that everyone is like this or everyone is like that, but what my truth is that for a woman to fully flourish, for a woman to fully be in her essence, to radiate and exude pure love and her sexuality and her sensuality, there needs to be a container and there needs to be safety for that. And the way that that's going to happen is if we have what's called a rise of the mature masculine or a rise of the awakened masculine, because we don't have a lot of role models out there who are really exuding and teaching us how do we live as a man with congruence? How do we live an authentic masculine life where we know how to contain our sexual energy, we know how to embrace the king inside of us, and we know how to hold space for the queen, which is who my wife is. She's a queen. But she could never fully, show herself as the queen if she didn't have a man by her side who's in full ownership of his masculine energy. So how this all came to be was my whole journey of going from the pseudo masculine to the alpha masculine to the immature masculine to the pseudo awakened masculine, all woo woo guru kind of guy. But I was never like really in full ownership of a healthy relationship between my balls, my heart, and my mind. So I see the awakened masculine as a higher level of consciousness, a higher order, where you're in ownership of all of your parts and you know how to bring forward in life the part of you that needs to be speaking at the right time. So I used to lead with immaturity. I used to lead with sarcasm. I used to lead with sexuality. It was all part of my own self-worth. I didn't own myself as a person, and I hid behind humor and I hid behind sarcasm, and I didn't see women in the same light that I see them today. This is part of a person's evolution, which is partially why I do the work that I do, right? The network care is all about helping somebody raise their consciousness, because when you're resonating at a higher level of vibration, the way you think and the choices that you make are going to be different. So the Man on Fire program is really out there to help men get back their passion, get back their power, their authentic power, not the misuse of power, but the authenticity behind the power, where there's more congruence, there's more integrity, and to really find their purpose. Because a man without a purpose, a man without a mission, like if you're not doing this work, then you're not serving the very reason why you came here to this earth, right? So Man on Fire was just part of my mission. Part of my mission is to create a movement on this planet amongst men where we graduate the immature masculine and we get to a place where we're in full ownership of who we are, as opposed to just like following all the shoulds and being this pleaser in life. And the whole idea is, how do you go from being a pleaser to a piercer? A pleaser does it because they're saying, please like me, right? So a lot of men in their marriages or in their relationships, they fall into that pleaser syndrome or the yes monster syndrome. What a woman really wants, and I learned a lot of this from Tony as well as Donnie, is they want to be pierced. They want to be penetrated. How are you going to do that is through presence. They want to know that you're the captain of the ship. They want to know that you got us. They want to know that no matter what, you're going to be there forever. So this is something I had learned from Tony many, many years ago, where you have to be all in your relationship. You have to be fully committed. You have to bring that part of you that is ready to be all in, so that when you're looking at your woman, you're basically telling her, but you're not saying it out loud. You're saying there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say that's going to ever make me take my love from you. So you're telling her, bring it on. So anything that my wife does, any act that she goes through, any bitchiness that she goes through, I don't take any of it personal. None of it. I say, bring it on. And I tell her, I'm going to love you through all of this. I'm not saying this out loud. I'm telling her through my presence, like, you can do anything you want to do. It can't rock me at all off the foundation of who I am as a man. Like, I'm fucking here for you. I love you, you crazy bitch. Bring it on. When you give that type of presence and that penetration energy to your woman, you will own her for life. And I don't mean own her in a negative way. I mean own her like she knows you're the man. You fucking own yourself and you got us.
My fiance, when she would give me lots of attitude, and if I lost my shit or I got like somehow like hurt or offended by it and started going into things, she'd go, you're supposed to handle my attitude, like she'd be like, what are you doing? You're supposed to handle my attitude. And she's supposed to be a man that can handle that. And I was like, okay then.
Yeah. Well, that's my point, because the culture is not teaching us that, right? So we become sensitive. Next thing you know, there's this role reversal where we have on this feminine mask And women have to harden because they can't trust anymore, because there's a lot of guys out there that aren't containing their energy. They're not in ownership of who they are as a man. And so now the woman has on a masculine mask. So you have two role reversals. How are you supposed to have a functional, healthy relationship that can flourish when you have both of you living out of your core nature?
Yeah, I've been in relationships like that. Fucking dead.
Yeah.
Dead. I mean, yeah, it could be very loyal to each other, could be very good friends, could help co-create life together in a certain capacity, but just like the polarity, just dead when that happened.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a relationship killer. You have to be living in your core nature. That's really like what Man on Fire is about.
What do you find that men or the men that are coming to your program are most challenged with these days?
Great question. Two things. Number one, they all lie because they're terrified that if I were to fully reveal my indiscretions, my secrets, that I'd be seen as a fraud and nobody would like me anymore. I'd feel unworthy and I'd feel unlovable.
Hmm.
So they perpetuate their lies. What lies? Like if they go to a strip club, they're afraid to tell their wife. Some of them have slept with hookers. Some of them have done things that they're not proud of, and they're terrified to tell the truth. So the first thing is they all lie. And they're terrified if I just tell the truth, everyone's going to leave me. The other thing is that what men have a lot of trouble with today is to confront. And what I mean by confront is not confrontation. What I mean by confront is whatever's in your space that's blocking you of your personal power, whatever you need to handle, whether it's your taxes, whether it's a conversation with your boss, whether it's a conversation with your sister, with your wife, whoever it is, you have to confront what's been in front of you that you've been unwilling to confront. So people are afraid today. Men are afraid to actually deal with what's in front of them. So they put it behind them. Or they have the ostrich syndrome, which I teach about, where you bury your head in the sand. Now that I can't see the problem must not be there. Wrong. The problem's going to blow up. You can't pretend it's not there. So a man that doesn't confront and a man that's perpetually lying is a man that's weakening by the day and becoming castrated because he's living a false identity.
How long is your program?
So the men that come to my program, the starting point is a 3-day deep immersion with 12 brothers that come to the program, and usually about 6 alumni, so there's 18 of us.
Okay. Is this like, is there a vow of secrecy around what happens in your program?
There's a code,
Okay.
and yes, there is absolutely a sacred environment that we cultivate where the men can be fully expressed and share the truths that need to come out. So I mean, I can talk about certain things. There's certain things I can't talk about.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. I've been in processes like that where you almost want to keep that code of secrecy to protect the not just to protect the participants, but to protect the experience for the future participants. So they're not going in there all heady, because most people probably come into your event knowing they're going to be challenged.
Yeah.
And they probably come in all up in their head anyway. So why make more of it? Yeah.
Yeah. We do our best not to let them know what's going to transpire at the event. We give them the overall understanding of, well, here's the outcome that we're after, but they don't understand the tools and the processes that will take them through, which are all designed to really help them find themselves again, so that they leave the program finally just themselves. I mean, the pain that we're all in really is I'm just not even being me. That's all life is. That's the only pain you really have in life is there's this life that I signed on for. My soul signed on for this. This is the contract that I signed with, divine or source or God, and I'm living below that contract. I'm out of integrity with myself. I'm out of integrity with my contract. I'm being incongruent with the man that I was born to be. So of course you're going to be in pain. So when you come to the Man on Fire program, the whole idea is to wake the hell up and start to see, here's the life that was meant for you, and here's the path of how to get back to it.
Do you see alcohol, video games, Netflix, and do you see like a lot of men like dive into that stuff, food, to like just to cover up and to keep busy with the fact that they're not living their purpose?
Yeah, well, we had spoken about that earlier when I was referring to forms of pain management, right? Suffering is the avoidance of suffering, and how do we avoid it? Well, we have forms of pain management. What are they? For a man, it's porn, video games, texting, Facebooking, strip clubs, all of it. These are all just forms of pain management. And for a man, it's real prevalent.
Yeah. So they go right into that, right?
Right into that distraction. Or maybe somebody will go to work and just overwork. Or maybe they're in the band. Or maybe they're, working out all the time or running all the time. Yes, those are healthy things, but they're not healthy if they're forms of avoidance.
Yeah, I see that with a lot of friends of mine, some clients I talk to. The band is interesting. I've seen people go so deep into the band to avoid different things that they need to look at in their life or their career or things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tony teaches that. Tony Robbins teaches if you meet your needs outside of your marriage, say goodbye to your marriage.
Tell me this. Do you have any inside info? How long is Tony going to still be doing events?
I think he's good until about 120, 125.
At some point, though, I heard it was rumored that he's gonna pull back.
My inside information tells me he's never going to stop.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
I think even at his own demise, he just can't not do his events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's his greatest passion to do those events. I mean, this is what he was born for.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's where he's in his essence, in his element. And so it's like, my dad, up until the day that I literally had to put him in a nursing home because he just literally lost it with dementia, he was still at work, right? So a man's greatest joy is to serve the thing that he loves. That's Tony's greatest joy. So my inside information is he's going to do it until his body tells him he can't.
Well, we definitely know what your life purpose is, my man. I'm sad that your practice has gone from New York for now. I'm happy about Man on Fire, and I think we did good here.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, thank you for doing it with me. We've been trying to get this going for a couple of years now. And when we met, this place was basically just rubble. There was nothing going on. There were no walls. There was nothing here, no equipment, no rooms. There was no plumbing in this space. And we've been talking about, I kept telling you, like, oh, I'm going to have my new podcast studio I'm going to have it at Vitality in the office. And here we are. So thank you so much, my man.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me on this show.
And David, let's do this. Your New York practice is being handed off to somebody you trust very much. Who is that being handed off to?
Phenomenal practitioner. His name is Dr. Cliff Inkles, Inkles. You could look him up. I believe it might be under the name Life Power Wellness.
I'm going to put it in the notes and on the screen for people watching on YouTube. And Man on Fire, where's the best way that they can get connected with that?
Go to manonfirerising.com and opt in. Give me your email. You'll get emailed the free manifesto, and that's the best way to start getting in touch with me.
I have the manifesto. I love that. Thank you. David, thanks so much, my man.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.